Hi, I'm Kristin Davis, and I want to know, are you a Charlotte? Today, I have an incredible friend on, the one and only Lena Waithe, who is an incredible actress, producer, and screenwriter, and director. She created a Showtime show called The Chi, which is now in its 7th season, which is amazing. She wrote and produced Queen and Slim, the film. And when I first really became aware of her, as most people, is when she starred in Master of None. She became the first African-American woman to win the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Writing for a Comedy Series. And she's also in that series, and it's so incredible. It's about her own coming out story. I love her so much, and she knows so much about television. I think you guys are really going to enjoy this. Lena Waithe.
Yes.
Yay! Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I've been dying to have you on.
I've been dying to come on.
I texted Lena right away.
Yeah.
When we got this podcast.
You did.
Saying, you will have to be on, please, please, please.
And I said yes.
You did, thank God.
Just say when.
Thank God.
I'm so honored to be here.
I am honored to have you. And I'm honored to have you for many reasons. Number one, I just like to see you.
I love to see you.
Number two, Lena, in case you guys don't know, is a multi-hyphenate. I'm going to tell you your whole resume later when you're not in front of me. But the thing that's important is that her knowledge of film and television is so expansive and deep. And this is partly why I love her. Like when we first started, and just like that, you left me the sweetest voicemail. I don't know what panicky thing I had sent to you or whatever, but you know, you're just very grounding. Your knowledge is very grounding in terms of, you know, what has happened before, you know, how things develop in our culture, on television, in film, what it means. And as you just said to me when you sat down, we were talking about this episode, you said, I think television has a timestamp.
Yes.
Tell me more. What do you mean exactly?
Well, I think sometimes when people look at TV from, say, 10 years ago or even 20, it can feel in moments uncomfortable or icky even because you're thinking, oh, well, no one would make that joke today. Or you couldn't do that now. And what's interesting about that is that what I believe art is, it's a time capsule, really. Right. And it's a time stamp of where we were at that time.
Right.
And what was happening in the world then.
Right.
And so I think of, even though, yes, these are fictitious characters, in a way, this is sort of giving us a sense of what New York was at that time, what it was for women at that time, what the limits were at that moment, and what could and couldn't be talked about, and what barriers you guys were pushing up against. And so, and I'm really grateful that I got to grow up with it. I was like, I was a teenager when it first came on. And so I was learning so much about what it meant to be an adult friend by watching you all. And I think I was more interested in that than the love stories per se.
Right.
But the love stories were there as well. I just told you about something about self-love and how you see yourself. But watching it now as a 40-year-old person, revisiting the episode, for a lot of us who are my age, we feel a little confronted by it now, Sex and the City, because we are now the ages that you guys were then at that time. And and we're seeing ourselves play out some of these storylines.
Right.
And that, I think, is saying that the show, you may point certain things out and say, oh, you can't make that joke now, but I do think the show is aging well.
Thank you.
Because the fact that I can see myself in it as I get older and understand things better.
Right.
It's work that I've gotten to grow up with and I still get to sit with now. But now it's not, a lot of us are saying it's not just fun on the background now. Now it's, okay, I'm in this stage right now. Or I'm going through a divorce, or I'm about to get married, or I'm about to have my first baby.
Right.
And so now it's as if you guys are still there. I think of art as an inheritance. And so we have inherited this work. And that's why I think within Just Like That is the continuation of the life of the work. And so when I go back and revisit and Just Like That, I will be, as I get older, I will then start to understand these stories even more.
I love
in
that.
due time.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's part of the reason I wanted to do the podcast is because I do feel also for myself.
Right.
You know,
you're there.
Right. I was there, but also I was the age I was when we started, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm the age I am now, and I have such a different perspective. And as I was telling you when you sat down, I had never really rewatched because when they would come out in the beginning, we would be so excited to see them, you know, because obviously we were kind of doing this fresh, totally different thing. And,
Yeah.
you know, we were always like a little scared also, you know, about whatever we had done. As you know, because you act as well, it's like scary to watch yourself.
You don't know how it's going to turn out.
No.
And you guys are taking a lot of risks.
A
in the
lot
stories.
of risks. I mean, and we still are. Like, wait till you see the first episode of it.
I could not wait. I'm ready, okay? I'm ready.
I know. I'm ready too. But I was like, oh my God, I forgot about that. But that's how we used to feel too. Like, you know, what do we say? What do we do? How's it going to seem? Are people going to be just, in the beginning, we thought people would just be outraged, you know, because there was nothing else like it, you know, and we weren't out there talking about sex freely as women at the time in 1997 when we filmed the pilot, right?
Crazy.
It's a different time, right?
Yeah.
So then over time, the first time that they syndicated the show, they edited it. Do you remember this? It was on E!
Of course, I was just actually thinking about that.
Right. And so they took a lot of stuff out. And
sure.
if you'd be walking by TV and it'd be on, I'd be like, you know, it just seemed so weird to me. Like to first of all, have it be out in a mass way, right? We never expected that.
Sure.
And then to have it kind of altered, which was weird. So like whole storylines would be gone. Yeah. And then also I felt like, well, I just don't want to relive it and like live in the past.
Sure, that's true.
Right?
Because the past and future don't exist.
Right, exactly.
Present,
There's only the now. But then when it came on Netflix and all these younger people started discovering it.
Absolutely.
And I think because we're still together working, so it's not that thing where it hurts you to look at it, you know, because we're still really very vibrantly together.
Exactly.
And, you know, love what we're doing still. Yeah. So then I felt like I so want to see what storylines still resonate, what still is true, what isn't true, you know, what culturally, where are we at?
Right.
Because so many things have changed and then certain things not changed at all.
At all, yeah.
Super fascinating.
Absolutely. I mean, well, I remember when it did come to E! And I remember, because obviously I watched it on HBO and loved it. I used to watch it with my mom, which is like crazy, you know. But I think when it came to E! I think some people were kind of nervous about how is this going to translate? Because the whole thing about it is that it's HBO, it's premium, it's different. But I think what was happening was it had become such a cultural point in our society that I think it was actually really smart for E! to grab it, obviously for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
But because then it became this sort of thing where anyone could have access to it. You know, and the truth is, because Sex and the City is such a premium type of entertainment, it was nice for people to have access to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that was cool. And I think now when it came to Netflix, because now it's everywhere. It's exactly as it was. They aren't taking things out.
It's crazy to think about.
And so, but now it's happening in a way where, like when somebody gets sick or you're chilling at home, whatever. Yeah. Now you can just have it on, but you're not. It doesn't feel mindless though. It's almost this new rebirth. And if you think about it, how it aired in its original, then it goes to E! Now it's on Netflix. What it's telling you is this is the kind of thing every television writer, creator, person wants to make. Something that can live in different mediums. You know, it can be on a streamer. It can be on a basic cable. You can go to HBO Max still, I think, if you want to find it, and obviously still find the latest. Yeah. It means that there is a desire for it. There is something about these characters, something about dating, something about friendship, something about trying to balance career and family. These are just universal things, you know. And look, you deal with the race element. Yeah, it's like for women, but at the end of the day, it's like it's something very universal about it. Very universal. And that was cool about I mean, look, I mean, we live in a white-leaning society. We live in a patriarchal society. We live in a capitalist society. Those are just facts. Right. And when you accept that, there's a level of, okay, this is what's happening. But what I do think what And Just Like That does is where you guys have brought Black women to the table now. And so, but what you kind of find is that there's cultural differences, but not when it comes to love and balance and trying to raise kids and keep a husband and have a sense of self. Right. And so what that also reminds us is we have more in common than we think. Absolutely. And but what's interesting about these characters is a Black woman could say, I relate to Charlotte. Of course. You know what I'm saying? A Black woman could say, I relate to Carrie. An Asian woman could say, I'm a Samantha at my crew. Definitely. Because it's really more about these character sort of types. And also, there are people that break down Sex and the City in much deeper ways than I do, but there are people that say they make up one woman. I know. Sarah Jessica says this. Yeah, I mean, okay, see, hello. She knows. I did push back though, Lena. Okay. I did push back.
I'm Andrea Gunning, host of the podcast Betrayal. Police Lieutenant Joel Kern used his badge to fool everyone, most of all, his wife, Caroline.
He texted, I've ruined our lives. You're going to want to divorce me.
Caroline's husband was living another life behind the scenes. He betrayed his oath to his family and to his community.
She said you left bruises, pulled her hair, that type of thing.
No.
How far would Joel go to cover up what he'd done?
You're unable to keep track of all your lies, and quite frankly, I question how many other women may bring forward allegations in the future.
This season of Betrayal investigates one officer's decades of deception, lies that left those closest to him questioning everything they thought they knew. Listen to Betrayal on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yo, K-pop fans, it's your boy Bomhan, and I'm bringing you something epic. Introducing the K Factor, the podcast that takes you straight into the heart of K-pop. We're talking music reviews, exclusive interviews, and deep dives into the industry like never before. From producers and choreographers to idols and trainees, we're bringing you the real stories behind the music that you love. And yeah, we're keeping it 100, discussing everything from comebacks and concepts to the mental health side of the business. Because K-pop isn't just a genre, it's a whole world, and we're exploring every corner of it. And here's the best part. Fans get to call in, drop opinions, and even join us live at events. You never know where we might pop up next. So listen to the K Factor on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement. Are you ready? Let's go.
Amy Robach and TJ Holmes here. Diddy's former protege, television personality, platinum-selling artist, Danity Kang alum, Aubrey O'Day joins us to provide a unique perspective on the trial that has captivated the attention of the nation.
Aubrey O'Day is sitting next to us here. You are, as we sit here, right up the street from where the trial is taking place. Some people saw that you were going to be in New York, and they immediately started jumping to conclusions. So can you clear that up? First of all, are you here to testify in the Diddy trial? Aubrey will offer her opinions and expertise based on her first-hand knowledge from her days on making the band as she emerged as the breakout star. The truth of the situation would be opposite of the glitz and glamour.
It wasn't all bad, but I don't know that any of the good was real. I went through things there.
Listen to Amy and TJ Presents Aubrey O'Day covering the Diddy trial on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey y'all, it's your girl T.S. Madison coming to you loud, live, and in color from the Outlaws podcast. On this week's episode, we're talking to none other than Chaperone and Sasha Colby. And let me tell you, no topic is off limits, honey. We talk about the lovers, the haters, and the creator.
I worked at Scooter's coffee drive-through kiosk.
And you are from the Midwest. And in the Midwest, they told you, well, just be humble. Like, you've heard this countless times. You too, right?
Yeah, it's very, big in Hawaii.
Mine was, I think, wrapped up in, Christian guilt.
Oh, yeah. We definitely had, some Jehovah's Witness guilt there, yeah.
Wait, were you Jehovah's Witness?
Yeah.
So you were Jehovah's Witness?
I grew up that, yeah. My family still is, hey. Or no, hi.
Listen, she may have been working the drive-thru in 2020, but she's the name on everybody's lips now, honey. Listen to Outlaws with T.S. Madison on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, honey.
What happens when we come face to face with death?
My truck was blown up by a 20-pound anti-tank mine.
My parachute did not deploy.
I was kidnapped by a drug cartel.
I just remember everything getting dark. I'm dying.
When we step beyond the edge of what we know.
To open our consciousness to something more than just what's in that Western box.
And return.
I clinically died.
The heart stopped beating.
Which I was dead for 11.5 minutes.
My name is Dan Bush. My mission is simple: to find, explore, and share these stories.
I'm not a victim, I'm a survivor.
You're strongest when you're the most vulnerable.
To remind us what it means to be alive.
Not just that I was the guy that cut his arm off, but I'm the guy who was smiling when he cut his arm off.
Alive Again, a podcast about the fragility of life, the strength of the human spirit, and what it means to truly live. Listen to Alive Again on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.
It also depends on where you are in your life.
Definitely.
Because sometimes you're in the Charlotte era where you're
yeah.
like, I really want to be married. I want to have a kid.
Right.
And other times you're in the Samantha era where you're like, I'm cool here. I want to do
rightly
this.
so.
Yes, exactly. So I think what's also interesting about the show is as you grow, and there's that whole argument online is that everybody says, oh, well, Miranda was right. You know, we were almost taught by society to think, oh, Miranda is so uptight and she's so cold and she's not as, frolicky as
Fun.
the other girls. Yeah. But then you kind of realize in your life, oh, she's a person with a lot of discernment. She doesn't trust easily. She's not as warm and cuddly.
Yep.
And I think that's because the world, especially a corporate world which she lives in, you don't really get to be that. I'm saying also Charlotte is a person who is in the art world and she's a curator and all these different things. So I think you get to be a little bit more lean into your feminine in a way that maybe other people can't. And with Samantha working in PR, you have to be tough, but there's also a level of using her feminine wiles to get what she wants. And Carrie's a writer, so she has to live in order to do her job. If she's not dating and having sex, what's her column going to be about?
Oh, yeah, I forget that.
Yeah. So there's just so many things about it. And also it's so interesting because, of course, the press or critics, if you look at old reviews, they say, oh, it's gay men writing these women.
I hate that. I hate that so much.
It's man-hating, or they have all this sex, or where they got this money from. Look, at the end of the day, it's what the show is actually doing is confronting all of us about what it means to be a woman in the world. And I really think, to me, what's so fascinating about the show really covers is motherhood.
Yeah.
And about, have you gotten an abortion? Did you think about getting one?
Yes.
I love the Shoulda, Coulda, Woulda is one of my favorite episodes.
Oh, it's a good one.
We're not here to talk about that one. It's fine.
God, yeah.
But, it's just kind of, I know, it'll come back. But it just sort of covers, and that's how I learned television writing really from watching Sex and the City and listening to Michael Patrick King's commentary.
Yeah.
Is about making sure you have everyone's opinion in the room. And those writers were so great at making sure whatever the topic was, all four of you, none of you agreed.
Right.
And I think that's what makes the scene, those iconic lunch, dinner scenes
coffee shop,
so amazing because you all are going to have a different opinion.
It's true.
And what I love in the episode, I'm here to talk about, Miranda actually has to leave the table.
Oh my God, I know, I'd forgotten about this.
She leaves the table because she's like, I'm tired of talking about men.
I know, which I think Michael Patrick wrote this episode. It's called Take Me Out to the Ball Game. I leave out all the details.
No, it's all good. Where Carrie was season 2 opener, where Carrie is mourning her relationship.
Exactly.
Yes.
Mourning her relationship, living in that horrible fear that you're going to run in to your ex.
Somewhere in the world.
Which, of course, happens, especially in New York, because you're out there on those streets.
You are. And I love, of course, Charlotte saying you have to, be sad and be inside and go through, which I actually agree. I kind of agree. I agree with Charlotte there.
I agree with myself as well.
You're like, I agree with my character. And Miranda's
which
like,
I don't
no.
always. I know.
Miranda's like, no,
but Miranda's like, don't feel those feelings.
Just
she's on
you're
a
fine.
roll.
You gotta go. Let's stop talking about it.
Right?
And the truth is, when I was watching it, I was like, oh my God, that's our lives right now. Like somebody's going through a separation, and some of us are saying, girl, you got to move on, and others are saying you need to mourn. And as I was watching the episode, I was like, oh Jesus, this is my life being reflected back. But I think that we're both right. In some ways, I do believe in. Maybe I'm that friend saying, I was in the voice note, give yourself grace, be gentle with yourself.
That's for you.
Take your time. It's okay. But then others are saying, girl, it's time. You got to move on and let it go.
Because this is one thing Charlotte talks about. Is there a limit? Because I do think with myself, certainly, and I haven't been through a breakup in a while, thank God. But, there comes a time where it maybe goes too long. You're laying on that couch too long.
True. I think that's the interesting thing is I also believe everything is temporary. Good feelings as well as bad.
Definitely.
And so if you're feeling sad for a really long time, or it feels like, hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
Then, if a Lena character is there, I'm saying, then it might be a time to talk to a therapist.
For sure.
And kind of get to the root of what's going on. Because now this person is more a representation of something.
You've projected onto this relationship in some deeper
way. This is triggering something. You got to get to the root of it.
Definitely.
But looking at it in retrospect, because we ultimately knows what happens with Carrie and Big, the question then becomes, if you can't get over someone, are you actually meant to get over them? Is there something going on? Will that person come back?
Yeah.
Or, there's a season, it's like that maybe it's time for that person to go away. And and you come back. But I think also the writing is just so beautiful because she does bump into Big, of course.
Right.
She looks great. She's with a hot guy.
Right.
And he, of course, is a little burned by it. And it's season 2, so
right. We got a long way to go.
Yeah, and it's setting something up, which I think Sex and the City does a beautiful job of creating these romances that can come and go, which I also learned about in terms of relationships. They can blossom for a season, and then they can close, and they can come back. I mean, that happens with your character as well. You have gentlemen that come and go, and then they find their way back into your life.
That's true, and that is true too. I think in the beginning, and again, I wasn't really thinking very objectively when we were doing it. Whatever they wrote, I was like, let's try to make this work. That was my thing, right? Like I never examined it very hard, right? So when I'm looking back on it, sometimes I'm like, I know Charlotte believes in love, but like, why was she so into Big? Because Big really puts Carrie through it,
True.
Right? But I was always like, yay, Big, you know what I mean?
That's interesting.
And I never thought about it, but I also think it's because I'm my age now versus my age then. Do you know what I mean?
Well, it's interesting because I think she believes in them because for Carrie, she's thinking like, this is the one. I think this is the guy.
She's thinking that because Carrie's thinking that.
Right. And she wants Carrie to have what she wants. And she wants the guy that she's going for. And I think at the time, I don't know if we had the emotional intelligence to say, well, he's not really committing.
Right.
And like, what's going on? And what should we do?
And also, he was all the things that they talk about now, like breadcrumbing, the things that people talk about online.
Oh my God, gaslighting, all that stuff.
But we never thought those things in the 90s.
No, you didn't.
No, we didn't.
But it's so interesting because like I was around, like, my mom or her friends, they would say, I haven't Mr. Big. I haven't Mr. Big.
Really?
And so I think, everybody kind of has one. Yeah. And I think, but now what Mr. Big represents is someone who is just unattainable.
Definitely.
And someone you kind of can't have.
Most
and
definitely.
That's why I think, within just like that, people get so in their feelings because in a way, Sex and the City is like this sort of fairy tale for adult women.
True.
And so the movie then also kind of gave us, it continues the chapter where, it was a mess up and they got married. And then the second movie, okay, she cheated. Okay, now, and just like that, okay, he's gone. It sort of takes you through all these stages of a relationship, and then, I mean, not to get too deep, but, when his character dies, in a way, it's that part of that little girl of hers also died.
Yeah.
Like she doesn't need to chase a Prince Charming anymore.
That's so true. And I feel like she really embodies that so beautifully.
I'm Andrea Gunning, host of the podcast Betrayal. Police Lieutenant Joel Kern used his badge to fool everyone, most of all, his wife Caroline.
He texted, I've ruined our lives. You're going to want to divorce me.
Caroline's husband was living another life behind the scenes. He betrayed his oath to his family and to his community.
She said you left bruises, pulled her hair, that type of thing.
No.
How far would Joel go to cover up what he'd done?
You're unable to keep track of all your lies, and quite frankly, I question how many other women may bring forward allegations in the future.
This season of Betrayal investigates one officer's decades of deception. Lies that left those closest to him questioning everything they thought they knew. Listen to Betrayal on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yo, K-pop fans, it's your boy Bomhan, and I'm bringing you something epic. Introducing the K Factor, the podcast that takes you straight into the heart of K-pop. We're talking music reviews, exclusive interviews, and deep dives into the industry like never before. From producers and choreographers to idols and trainees, we're bringing you the real stories behind the music that you love. And yeah, we're keeping it 100, discussing everything from comebacks and concepts to the mental health side of the business. Because K-pop isn't just a genre, it's a whole world, and we're exploring every corner of it. And here's the best part. Fans get to call in, drop opinions, and even join us live at events. You never know where we might pop up next. So listen to the K Factor on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement. Are you ready? Let's go.
Amy Robach and TJ Holmes here. Diddy's former protege, television personality, platinum-selling artist, Danity Kang alum, Aubrey O'Day joins us to provide a unique perspective on the trial that has captivated the attention of the nation.
Aubrey O'Day is sitting next to us here. You are, as we sit here, right up the street from where the trial is taking place. Some people saw that you were going to be in New York, and they immediately started jumping to conclusions. So can you clear that up? First of all, are you here to testify in the Diddy trial? Aubrey will offer her opinions and expertise based on her first-hand knowledge from her days on making the band as she emerged as the breakout star. The truth of the situation would be opposite of the glitz and glamour.
It wasn't all bad, but I don't know that any of the good was real. I went through things there.
Listen to Amy and TJ Presents Aubrey O'Day covering the Diddy trial on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey y'all, it's your girl T.S. Madison coming to you loud, live, and in color from the Outlaws podcast. On this week's episode, we're talking to none other than Chaperone and Sasha Colby. And let me tell you, no topic is off limits, honey. We talk about the lovers, the haters, and the creator.
I worked at Scooter's coffee drive-through kiosk.
And you are from the Midwest. And in the Midwest, they told you, well, just be humble. Like, you've heard this countless times. You too, right?
Oh, yeah. It's very, like, big in Hawaii.
Mine was, I think, wrapped up in, like, Christian guilt.
Oh, yeah. We definitely had, like, some Jehovah's Witness guilt there, yeah.
Wait, were you Jehovah's Witness?
Yeah.
So you were Jehovah's Witness?
I grew up that, yeah. My family still is. Hey. Or no, bye.
Listen, she may have been working the drive-thru in 2020, but she's the name on everybody's lips now, honey. Listen to Outlaws with T.S. Madison on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, honey.
What happens when we come face to face with death?
My truck was blown up by a 20-pound anti-tank mine.
My parachute did not deploy.
I was kidnapped by a drug cartel.
I just remember everything getting dark. I'm dying.
When we step beyond the edge of what we know.
To open our consciousness to something more than just what's in that Western box.
And return.
I clinically died. The heart stopped beating.
Which I was dead for 11.5 minutes.
My name is Dan Bush. My mission is simple: to find, explore, and share these stories.
I'm not a victim, I'm a survivor.
You're strongest when you're the most vulnerable.
To remind us what it means to be alive.
Not just that I was the guy that cut his arm off, but I'm the guy who was smiling when he cut his arm off.
Alive Again, a podcast about the fragility of life, the strength of the human spirit, and what it means to truly live. Listen to Alive Again on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.
You know, people complain about Carrie online, which I find weird.
I don't know why would anyone complain about Carrie?
I know, Lena, I know.
What's
people
the issue?
complain about Carrie. They think she's self-centered, I think.
Well, aren't we all?
I mean, yes. My feeling is this, and you as a writer are going to have some insight into this. My feeling is that partly, I mean, if she was perfect, it wouldn't have been interesting.
Exactly. No, she has to be flawed.
Right?
What I was talking with someone the other day, we were getting really deep about Sex and the City. I thought I was coming on this. They never really dealt with Carrie's daddy issues.
This is a good point.
They glance at it with the Vogue episode.
Yes.
You know, where you see the photo, because there's the older gentleman who's helping her.
Rifkin,
yes, and who thinks that there's something between them, and for her, it's not. It's more, this is a paternal figure. Even though Mr. Big is older than her, it's enough of an age difference where it's sort of like, Spencer Tracy type energy. But I think, I think as I learn and grow and read books and go to therapy, what you realize is how you show up in your romantic relationships is a direct reflection of how you were loved by your parents.
So true.
What you didn't get from your parents, you try to get from your love.
Yeah.
And so you have to kind of look at your parents and ask, what was I missing or what was I getting from you? Because what she says is very clear in the episode is that her dad had abandoned her and her mother. He was gone. And so she, in a way, is looking for a man to validate, to accept, to be present. And
Lena, my God. You're solving these questions for me. Yes, it's so true. I had not thought about this clearly.
I mean, it's literally something, I just had this conversation with someone.
Wow.
Where they were like, what did they ever get into Carrie's dad stuff? I don't really know if they talked too much about her mother.
No, we didn't, because
but
Michael
that's on
Patrick,
purpose.
Right.
He wanted them to exist outside of their parents.
Right. And he felt like when people go to New York City, no one ever talks about their background. You're just there.
True.
Like present in the moment, creating whatever you're trying to create,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely. You're your own person.
Right. And he had reminded me at one point that there had been a scene that they ended up not using where she had in her bedside drawer a little picture of her father, and she had looked at the picture and closed the drawer, and they ended up cutting it.
From which episode? The Vogue episode? or a
Early
different
on,
one?
no.
Early?
I think first season, I want to
Wow.
say. I know. I had totally forgotten about this.
Well,
But yeah, it's never explained.
Well, I do remember him saying something about that, like saying, I didn't want to go into the whole parent stuff, which, which I get because with TV in the 90s, that was always an episode. It was always, here come the parents. Oh, you got to clean up, and who am I dating, and da-da-da-da-da. And so give you insight more into the characters. And so what was great about it, which obviously it clearly worked, because we see you all as individuals, and now it's about like what you're starting your own dynasties in a way. It's about like, who am I going to marry? What kid am I going to have? But as just people out here watching it, what I found, who I am in relationships is a direct reflection of what I grew up witnessing, or didn't have, or what I missed, and I'm telling you, it's like the dad conversation is like, who is Carrie? Who is Mr. Bradshaw?
I mean, that's so true.
Because that's more important than who is Mr. Big.
Definitely, that's so interesting, and it's also interesting because people talk about the Aiden versus Big. Obviously, they're so different. And it is interesting that she still, I mean, when I talked to Sarah was on the podcast, and I said, what would you like to share with us, insight into this? And she also, no matter what she says, can't separate, right?
No.
She has played Carrie for 30 years, right?
It's
it's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, 29, whatever it is.
Wow.
But she explained Big in a super interesting way that I never thought about.
Of course, because she's so smart.
Right, and I was like, no, I'm trying to ask you about Carrie. Like, let's talk about Carrie. Why does Carrie want Mr. Big? Do you know what I mean? Because she said so many interesting things that I would never have thought of. And also, this is what I love about talking to people, is that everyone has their own, first of all, experience, and second of all, thoughts and memories, and knitting it all together is super fascinating. But what the thing I took away from her thoughts about Carrie and Big was that in the initial pilot, do you remember? I really hated the pilot previous to rewatching it.
Oh my gosh!
I know. Pilots
are hard. Pilots are
so hard. You've made so many.
Jeez.
I mean, have you ever heard my theory of pilots? My theory of pilots is this: a pilot needs to be like 75% good, but not 100% good. Because you have to have the elements there, but you don't want it to come together too good, because if it comes together too good, then when the show goes, it might.
That's kind of true.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it needs to have something. It needs to be rough around the edges a little bit.
Right,
still.
but it's got to have that.
It has to have that thing.
Energy, the thing that's kind of intangible, but not be all the way there.
No, that's true.
Right?
Yeah,
and that's how I feel
cook.
like our pilot was.
Fair.
Thank you. But I think the one scene in our pilot, when I went back and watched it, it was way better than I remembered.
Okay.
Because I'm hard on myself and my memory, whatever.
Sure.
But the final scene where he drives her, they keep running into each other, and he drives her in that crazy old-fashioned town car.
Yes.
And she gets out, and she says to him, or whoever says, "Have you ever been in love?" And he says, "Absolutely." And the lights are all glistening in the background. She basically said that in that moment, the die was cast.
That's good.
Because when I was trying to get her to explain, why'd you put up with all the stuff, you Carrie,
Yes,
her,
not
whatever.
Sarah, yeah.
She was just basically saying that the die was cast, and that it wasn't necessarily something that was thought out. It just happened.
Yeah, I get
Super
that.
interesting.
I think that's fair.
I get that too.
But also, I think because I hear what you're saying. It's an iconic last scene, and it's the beginning of this journey that we had no idea would last, like you said, almost 30 years.
Yeah.
But I think it's also that Casablanca moment. It's that moment of us falling in love with them.
Yeah.
And this sort of like push and pull. And I think what you learn about TV couples is that they can never just be happy.
Right, because
otherwise you don't have a show.
Totally.
You know, that's why Big had to die.
Totally, I know.
Because they had the house, they had the thing, they figured it out, and now once you learn the lesson, you go.
That's right.
And so now it's a new lesson for her to learn.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. The other thing I think about Carrie in terms of people criticizing her is that because she is the writer and because she is driving everything and you're hearing her thoughts, of course she's going to seem self-centered. You're hearing her thoughts.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
What I love about Sex and the City is they engage the audience because she's always asking a question.
That's true.
That's how every comedy begins.
I wonder.
Yeah. Or like, should you stay in love or should you this? Or
Right.
And it makes you question. She's wondering.
That's true.
And so now you're wondering, do
I
get over things quickly or do I wallow?
So true. Yeah.
Like, which am I? Or like,
That's so true.
do I do this or do I that? You
Definitely.
know? And so, and I think, so now what I love, why I feel like we love Carrie, and she very much is sort of, I think, a Mary Richards for her time.
Yes.
Is that we now are on this ride with her.
Right.
Now we're dating with her. That's what we're saying. Like, it should be big. It should be Miss Aiden. Da, 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 da.
Right.
And my old lesbian ass was sitting there thinking, like, who do I want to be? Am I Mr. Big or am I Aiden? And I always wanted to be
Who
an
did you want to
Aiden.
be?
I want to be
you
Aiden.
Want to be, yeah.
You know, I want to be the one that's like making
that's
furniture, breaking down the
warm.
wall. But the sucky thing is that a lot of us feel like if you're an Aiden type, you're probably going to get cheated on.
Oh, no.
By a big. But then I also have Mr. Big qualities about myself. I think some people may say like, okay, I know there's a little bit of a suave energy.
I think you
I don't know, but it's like I'm looking at both
energy.
of them. It's like, okay.
Totally.
They represent different things.
Definitely, they represent different things. Okay, let's talk about the breakup rules for a second, because when you're talking about the question, that's her question of this episode.
Yeah.
So this is also so funny to me. So in my mind, the pilot was really bad and really dark, right? Which it is really dark.
It is dark.
But now I look back on it and I love that it's so dark.
Yeah, it's new.
It's cool. It's different. I mean, you can barely see us sometimes.
I know.
Like, where are we?
I know, but then it gets super light.
I know, it really does.
Then
it
it's
really
like
does. As
lights
we get
flashing.
more money.
Right. Okay, the clothes get a little fancier and like.
Most definitely. Sarah Jessica told me we had $10,000 for costumes the first season. Can you believe that?
That didn't even cover the shoe budget the second
No,
season.
I know.
Wow.
But that was when we had to get people to lend us stuff.
Jeez Louise.
You know? Yeah, that's the only way we did it in the beginning. So anyway, here we are. This is the second season. And in my mind, I also love season 3, as we briefly discussed.
I really like season 3 in terms of where everything's just sort of gelling. But
Oh
season
my
2,
God,
but season
magical.
2, but I like season 2, the season 2 opener, because what's interesting about it is there's an energy of you guys feel a little confident.
Yes.
There's a confidence in all of you.
Definitely.
I think because you guys are, we're here for a second season.
Do you feel that way when you're doing a show?
Yeah, I think the actors, because sometimes, if I'm the creator, I'm on the opposite side of it, the actors feel a little bit more settled. Because in the first season, you're just trying, okay, hopefully we get picked up.
Yeah.
If you get picked up for a second season, it means, all right, what we did last time didn't work. It worked.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
so we're not
yeah.
too bad. And then now you're like, okay, now we're on these journeys, and who are these people? Who are these characters?
Definitely,
But
I feel that way.
They're like, you guys are like, it's great. It's
right,
beautiful.
and we have the coffee shop set.
Yes.
So we actually, because like first season, you're like, where are they? And like we're in weird places on Long Island City.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. So we finally got the coffee shop set, which is great.
Yes.
And we have a scene that is a coffee shop scene, which is the one where Miranda,
It's like
gets
sick
up
of talking about
and
men.
literally says, "Don't talk about men." And Michael Patrick wrote this episode, and I think that he was actually using criticism of the show.
Yes, all you guys do is sit around and talk about men. Yeah, I could feel that.
Right.
And yes, and I've been, I've done that too. Where you write in, kind of what
I
people
like
are
that.
saying.
I like that
Yeah.
when writers
It's
do
like
it.
a run toward it, address
Totally,
it.
right? Run toward it, definitely. I have the sweater that Cynthia's wearing in that scene in my house.
Oh
and
my
I wear it. I know. Sometimes I would take Miranda clothes home because you can wear them in normal life.
Oh my
You know what
gosh,
I mean?
right? I know Miranda's like the real girl. She's like, look,
totally,
I got to be a real
relatively
person.
normal
Yes.
as we go. Anyway, so this is the whole. We go out to the baseball. We're going to talk about that in a second. But the big question, which I love because it does come up from Charlotte, where Charlotte says that to get over a breakup, it takes half the time of the relationship.
Yes.
What do you think?
I've always heard that, and I always loved that theory. Yeah.
Cool.
Here's the deal. I love that they're so like classic about it with you. Like you take like they gave the number of how long you were with the guy and how long it took to get over. But I mean, if you set an intention for yourself where you're like, okay, I dated for somebody 3 years, all right, year and a half is I'm gonna give myself. That's all I'm gonna give myself.
That's good.
But some, you could date somebody for like 6 months and it could be super intense.
Good point.
And you might need a little bit longer.
That's a good point.
So it just all depends because some people can linger with you.
Yeah.
It just depends on the person.
Yeah.
Some people are easier to get over than others.
I think that's so true.
Yes,
I'm
case
not
by
going to
case.
say more, but I think it's so true.
I won't say more either. We'll both keep that. Yeah.
We'll keep that. Lena, you are dropping the wisdom every which way, and we're just going to have to come back for another episode. So you guys come back later in the week.
I'm Andrea Gunning, host of the podcast Betrayal. Police Lieutenant Joel Kern used his badge to fool everyone. Most of all, his wife, Caroline.
He texted, "I've ruined our lives. You're going to want to divorce me."
How far would he go to cover up what he'd done?
The fact that you lied is absolutely horrific. And quite frankly, I question how many other women are out there that may bring forward allegations in the future.
Listen to Betrayal on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Amy Robach and TJ Holmes here. Diddy's former protege, television personality, Danity Kang alum, Aubrey O'Day joins us to provide a unique perspective on the trial that has captivated the attention of the nation.
It wasn't all bad, but I don't know that any of the good was real. I went through things there.
Listen to Amy and TJ Presents Aubrey O'Day, covering the Diddy trial on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And it's going to take us to heal us.
It's Mental Health Awareness Month, and on a recent episode of Just Heal with Dr. J, the incomparable Taraji P. Henson stopped by to discuss how she's discovered peace on her journey.
I never let that little girl inside of me die.
To hear this and more things on the journey of healing, you can listen to Just Heal with Dr. J from the Black Effect Podcast Network on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
AT&T. Connecting changes everything.
Being able to say, I feel like crying, so I will cry. Today, I'm a little depressed.
May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and Deeply Well is a sanctuary for your healing. I'm Debbie Brown, healer, well-being expert, teacher, and fellow seeker. And each week, we explore what it means to become whole through soul-expanding conversations and practices.
Today, wow, I feel really powerful and ready to serve and use my skills. And it's like, that's the heart of what it is to be an authentic woman.
To hear this and more ways to prioritize your peace, listen to Deeply Well from the Black Effect Podcast Network on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
AT&T. Connecting changes everything.
I want you to ask yourself right now, how am I actually doing? Because it's a question that we rarely ask ourselves. All of May is actually Mental Health Awareness Month, and on the psychology of your 20s, we are taking a vulnerable look at why mental health is so hard to talk about. Prepare for our conversations to go deep.
I spent the majority of my teenage years and my 20s just feeling absolutely terrified.
So this Mental Health Awareness Month, open the free iHeartRadio app, search the psychology of your 20s, and listen now.
You're listening to an iHeart podcast.